Hello, we're finally back here on the Grid Talk podcast to talk about the US Grand Prix at COTA that we had that happen. Well, it was last weekend, and we've also got Mexico coming up. As always, we have Wajid on the show, and we've also got special guest. You're not on the camera yet, Wajid. I can see you, but they can't. We've also got special guest for tonight, Paul Chaloner. Now, if I remember right, that brings us all up. There we go. We can also actually see what's going on. How are we both?
Sexy people. Hello. How you doing?
I'm just the color quota that you need for every podcast nowadays.
Well, that makes me the ginger of the show then. So we've filled all the quotas, right?
Sounds like it.
We're just missing black, just missing black, Oriental, and the LGBTQ community.
Well, to be honest, Wajid, Mohammed bin Salam wasn't available tonight.
I beg you don't mention that. I beg you don't mention that name ever
again. Obviously,
30 seconds in, guys. 30 seconds in. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, we're not getting cancelled just yet, so we're okay.
I mean, you were warned. You were warned.
Yeah, I was warned.
Yeah, we do upset people around here. Just going to start with a little. Obviously, we're back a little bit. We're missing a few weeks or whatever. So, as we've mentioned him, the British press not giving Mohammed bin Salam and the FIA the praise they deserve. What do we think on that, Paul?
I mean, I think there's as with any major sporting organizer, there is always hypocrisy, right? You can go and look at the IOC, you can go and look at FIFA, and I think you can definitely look at the FIA over the last however long you want to look at them for. I mean, since they were called FISA back in the late 70s, early 80s, hypocrisy has followed them everywhere. So I'm not that surprised, to be honest. Do they not get the? Maybe I'm just a weird person, but I believe the organisers of these tournaments, or the regulators, as I prefer to call the FIA, because not really the organisers, that's Liberty Media. The regulators should be seen and not heard, or rather heard but not seen. So either way around, you want to do it, but not both. And that means that it's okay if you want to, if you want to send Michael Massey out there to be the sacrificial lamb because you've screwed up, then okay, that's fine. But then you've got to live up to what you've put out there, right? And if you don't want that attention and you don't want that media, then don't do that. Don't put people out front to be shot down, which they never did when Charlie Whiting was in charge, by the way. You very rarely saw Charlie anywhere near a media screen, anywhere near an interview, anywhere near a journalist, in fact. And yet somehow that changed when he passed away and we had Massey, and then we had two race directors. And ever since then, it seems like they're toying a little bit with marketing, the FIA. Like sometimes they're like, hey, look at us, we're really good, look at all the great things we do. But actually, I don't think they should be doing that, Frank. They do some really good stuff. Road safety campaigns have been really good. Some of the stuff they do with youngsters is really good. Some of the stuff they've been doing with women has been really good. And that's fine. I don't mind that. I think that's really good. But moaning about not getting fair press or good press when you're being a dick, I think you're asking to be shot down.
I'm going to regret ever saying this, but Wajid, obviously, like Paul said, the changes came in. We lost Charlie very suddenly and unfortunately, and Michael came in, and everyone was very heavily critical of Michael, who had been trained by Charlie. Now we have whoever's in charge, whoever's free at the weekend. I mean, I think I've got the gig next weekend. It's just the way it seems to go. But now we have to have a special medal handed out for the win. It's like we've got to be praised for the job we're doing. And you shouldn't really, should you?
Fuck Mohammed bin Salman. End of. No, I don't care. He's been an absolute disgusting disgrace since he's been the head of the FIA. I remember, yes, there have been times where, it was known as the Ferrari International Association, all that. I understand all that. But even when Jean Todt was the head, there was never this amount of drama and bullshit that there currently is now. I do apologize. We're not monetized anyway, so who cares?
We're fine.
All right, yeah. it's total bullshit by him himself. Why you and he puts himself in total compromising position anyway. Why you stood there having long conversations with Max Verstappen at the end of races, going, "Oh well, Max, that was really unfortunate. Me and the boys did try to give you everything we could, but sorry, not this week." Like, what you like have some level of impartiality. Pretend to look impartial. Like, at least pretend to look impartial. I don't understand if it's a FIA thing. Don't understand if it's a Liberty Media thing. Don't understand if they're all getting together in a room and going, well, what's the stupidest idea we can create today, and like picking that from a board. It's just beyond the point of stupidity. And I understand what you're saying about Charlie and stuff, but the difference with Charlie Whiting, in my opinion, is no one questioned him because he'd been in that position for what, 15 years, 20 years, something. I don't remember off the top of my head, so apologies to that. But you put someone in who was sort of thrown into the job totally unexpectedly, given his very sudden passing at a time when there was a new president of the FIA at the same time. And everyone knows what happened in that year that we don't want to mention.
No, come on. We're how far into it? 7 minutes. Let's get to 10 minutes before we mention.
AD21.
I mean, I've got to say one thing, and this is something which I'm actually quite surprised about. I've just clicked on Bin Salam's career because we know he was backed by Red Bull in different things, and he won 14 Middle Eastern Rally Championships. Okay, so what? That record's already been broken, and his WRC results only go up to 1995. Well, I swear he was in a Red Bull backed car at some point.
I've definitely seen him. I've definitely seen pictures of Red Bull on his overalls somewhere.
Yeah.
Deep, I couldn't remember where, but I've definitely seen them.
But
also, I don't even think it's that. I think Wajid's right. It's not about whether he's been backed by Red Bull. Like, we've had Jean Todt, who came from Ferrari. We had Charlie Whiting, who came from Brabham. We've had plenty of people that worked, and obviously most of them at the FIA have worked for someone at some point. Even the people at Liberty Media in the past, like Ross Brawn when he was head of F1, he's worked at Ferrari and Benetton and Broad and Mercedes. So they've all got affiliations with it. There's nothing you can do about that, right? But what you expect them to do is, if they're going to work for the governing body, the organizer, or the regulator, you've got to expect them to be impartial. Like Wajid says, like, that's all we're asking for, or at least just appear impartial. At the very least, if you're going to do a shit job, don't do it publicly. Just like I said, that's why I like Charlie, because Charlie was very much in the background. He didn't court journalists. He didn't court the media. He didn't keep going on Sky and doing interviews. He did his job, and he did it properly. And that's why he gained the respect of all the drivers and the teams. Because what Charlie said, if Charlie said this, that's what went. It didn't matter if the teams didn't like it. And he was never biased. 1 minute it was Ferrari got it in the neck, then McLaren got it in the neck, then Benetton got it in the neck, and then McLaren got it in the neck. He didn't care who he upset. And that's what I want to get back to in terms of the overall feel of the FIA, not just that one role of the race director, but all of it. I want them to just blend into the background and do what they were doing before. A solid job, improving the FIA, improving motor racing, improving safety standards, working with medical practitioners like Sid Watkins in the past to improve safety around the hospitals and helicopters and safety around the track. Do all of that stuff that you did brilliantly for 20, 30 years under Max Mosley and various other people like Jean. To do that and stay out of the press and stay out of being controversial. We've got enough drama in F1 without you getting involved.
Yeah. Well, I've only just realised who vice president is, and it's Robert Reed, Richard Burns' old co-driver.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that he's not in charge. But yeah, go on, Wajid.
Well, now that we're 10 minutes in, I can openly say it, 2021.
Yeah, 2021.
The biggest problem the FIA have is Abu Dhabi 2021 to the 2021 season is one of the most watched seasons in the history of Formula One. That race, I don't know about you guys, but there were people who never watched Formula One that were asking me about the importance of that race, how big that race is and stuff. So the entire world's eyes were on something that ended up utterly farcical.
Yep.
And then the secrecy behind, Massey having to sign an NDA about what happened behind the scenes. Yes. The actual investigation, the FIA investigating themselves and saying, well, we might have done something wrong. It might have been a procedural error or something like that. Because there was so much BS around what's happened 2021 and it's never been cleared up. In my opinion, the FIA and F1 in general haven't recovered from that, because that was a massive turning point. The FIA lost a lot of respect in the eyes of normal fans. The FIA lost a lot of credibility in terms of casual fans, and F1 has never recovered. Recovered for that.
I agree with you, Wajid. I think the additional point to that as well is to consider is that you're right about it being it was one of those monumental races that everyone tuned in for, no matter what sport they liked or didn't like. Like 1976, everyone tuned into Japan to watch the Japanese Grand Prix in the middle of the night because there was a chance of James Hunt being world champion. Everyone tuned into Adelaide in 1986 for Nigel Mansell. It's a very similar kind of situation, except that, as you said, it ends controversially, which then causes even more problems and pains. It was a real chance for F1 to be shining light of what it's great at, and actually it turned into a shit show. And then beyond that, afterwards, it's gone to shit afterwards as well. And you're right, I don't think they ever have recovered from that. But I think it's almost worse than that, because we're also in what I call the Netflix age now, and that means that you've got divisions within. Like, I don't ever remember a time where I could go to a motor race and there were massive divisions between fans in the crowd as there are now, right? And they're still getting on now, okay, which is fine. You could never do it like football, for instance, could never do it the way we do it. But back in the day, back in my day, you were a Formula One fan first and foremost. Like, and if your favourite driver won, great. If your favourite driver didn't win, you didn't then blame the other driver or the other team for cheating. Like, it's gotten weird, and I think it all leads back to that moment. That's why I called it AD21. It's like literally after that moment, it's a line in the sand, right? Like, we all remember what happened before COVID and after COVID now, but AD21 is that line in the sand for F1. You're absolutely right, Wajid. We'd never recover from it, and it's about credibility, isn't it?
Lee,
pure simple. It's about credibility.
Lee says 2021 was the point where Drive to Survive effect spilled into dictating race direction. I mean, this is the thing.
And obviously we had the radio as well. The radio's all been banned since then. And I think that's, as much as I liked it, I think it's a good thing. But being able to contact race control and hearing that over the media, I think that was partially what led to Massey being put under massive. I think he fucked up. I genuinely think he fucked up. I think he knows he fucked up. I think most of the world knows he fucked up. But I don't necessarily think he did it on purpose or because he liked Red Bull more than he liked Mercedes. I don't believe that side of it. But the problem is, of course, is that it leads into all those conspiracy theories because they fucked up the report.
Sorry, Paul. Just to sort of push back before we actually get into the review of the race, because there was a race.
The race that happened last week.
There was a race there this weekend.
Which we will get back to the FIA.
21 3 years later.
We will get back into the FIA later anyway.
I just want to sort of push back slightly and slightly defend Massey, which is we don't actually know who was in race control
at that time.
At that time, you know, when the decisions were made, because you don't make someone sign. We've all worked, you know, in corporate, non-corporate. Like, you don't make someone sign an NDA unless something's happened in that room. Yeah. No one makes anyone sign an NDA unless something has happened that you do not want to disclose.
Yeah, because there's no need otherwise.
Yeah. So that's that's the only thing I will defend.
Maybe we should do a special Christmas special on AD21 3 years on.
No, let's not.
What are the effects 3 years later?
I beg you not. But yeah, I totally agree. I like 90% agree with everything you've said in regards to that. But that's the only thing I will defend is no one, except the people in race control that night, no one knows what happened.
Yeah.
I will say two things about the FAA before we move on. The first one is the FAA isn't Formula One. As we all know, it does rallying and it does everything else.
David. But I mean, again, a great point, because it's part of the confusion that came out of AD20. And the casual fan thinks that F1 and the FIA is the same thing. So
Yeah.
you get them going on Twitter and they go, I hate the FIA. They've done this. And then you go, no, that's Liberty. Liberty do that. Yeah, but the graphics on the screen, they're terrible. No, that's F1. That's Liberty Media. No, but it's the FIA because they do everything. No, that's Liberty. And it's just like, how frustrating is it to keep explaining to the same casual fan that's not the FIA? But because they've seen AD21 and everything after that was a fuck up from the FIA, they naturally assume that anything that's now wrong in F1 is due to the FIA. So I think they do get a bad rap from that. That's the one thing I will give them, that the people that work at the FIA are human beings. They do care about the sport. They love Formula One. And they do get a hard time when they shouldn't be getting a hard time. But also they deserve a hard time for a lot of the things that have happened. So they all unfortunately, get mixed together.
Don't start the human being question, or we'll get onto sim racing gloves as well. But with the FIA, they do so many different sports.
Yeah.
But you only see the president at one, which is a huge thing. Secondly, go back to Silverstone. Lewis Hamilton wins. You know, he's been a massive campaigner for individuality. What do you call it when you have different people? I can't think what the word is.
Diversity.
That's it. Different diversity in the sport. And he can't even look at Bin Salam when he shakes his hand, and he walks away like, no, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm going away. That says where you stand when you've got your main diversity person not wanting to go anywhere near the person who is equivalently diverse. You know, it's a difficult one, isn't it? But we're going to move on because we could be here all day with this one, and we'll save that one for Christmas special, where we can all sit on a comfy sofa and do it. The American Grand Prix, I don't think anybody will have missed the result, but if you have and you're coming on to this,
you have to specify. You have to specify which American Grand Prix.
It's COTA, but also look.
I know it's only one US Grand Prix. The other one's the Miami Grand Prix.
It'll be below us, won't it? It says F1 review. If you don't know the result by now and you're tuned into an F1 review show, how much of an idiot are you? We both clicked it there. Charles Leclerc winner, Carlos Sainz second, Max Verstappen third. Thank God we didn't do a preview show because we would have been yet again absolutely terrible with our predictions. The first thing we will say,
there was one guy on Reddit, David. I don't know if you saw this, but there was one guy on Reddit who posted it on Friday, got ridiculed for it and massively downvoted. But he said, my prediction for the weekend is that it's a Ferrari 1-2. Charles takes the lead at the start when Lando and Max take each other out and wins by 30 seconds. And I was like, oh my God, like how close did that guy come to predicting it perfectly? And he got absolutely ridiculed on Friday. So props to that one guy.
Well, maybe I should have invited him on as well, man. We could have got a result for Mexico and put a bet on it. But yeah, obviously we saw Charles Leclerc take the win with an absolute domination. It's almost boring, wasn't it?
Stop boring everyone.
Yeah, I'm never right. I mean, I said Lewis Hamilton would be in the car by now. Wajid, we'll start with you. Did you see this coming? Did you see Charles? Yeah, I mean, we did the summer preview, didn't we, in the summer break? And we said, even though Charles Leclerc is third in the World Championship, Piastri's fourth, he will be in the title fight. Lewis is seventh. He's in the title fight. How wrong did we get that? And now Charles Leclerc, he's there.
He's in this title fight.
The title fight that you said wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, that I still maintain is not going to happen. But I'm doing it for the views. We need the views, man.
True. So
don't send for me when I'm trying to help. No.
Could you say this is the best, apart from maybe Monaco, the best ever performance by Charles Leclerc?
No, because that one stop at Monza was unreal as well.
True, I forgot about that.
Yeah, because McLaren were by far and away the quickest car that weekend. I think the difference is, this weekend is it was unexpected, but what a drive by Charlie Leclerc, and in fairness, Carlos Sainz, they both took advantage of whatever Lando was doing, and in that first corner where he sort of half defended stuff like that. And that was also the first time in the history of COTA that someone from the second row of the grid has led the first lap at COTA, and he dominated. I think the only time that I was slightly nervous in the race for him was when the safety car came out, because I was like, well, Max has been fairly quick. We'll see what happens. But he just drove. It was Max 2023-esque where he got the gap and he just drove off, and it was a superb drive. It was an unreal drive by Ferrari. Great strategy called by Ferrari. Utterly dominant, and fair play. What a win!
I mean, Paul, for once, Ferrari and Charles Leclerc dictated the strategy. You know, Charles has always been critical since Seitz come into Ferrari, but Seitz is like, no, we don't do this, and Charles just goes, yes, sir, we'll do whatever we're told. Now he seems to be good. He did it at Monza as well. I want to do this, and he goes and does it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? When you've got a driver like Lewis Hamilton headed to the team next year, Charles has suddenly found his voice, and is already sort of becoming a bit more of what I would say a proper team leader should be. Like how he was with Vettel was there. Obviously, Vettel was the team leader. Alonso was the team leader when he went to Ferrari. And Charles is now, 6-7 years into his career now at Ferrari. Finally, he's decided, actually, I've got a voice and I want to say something. And the team are listening to him, to be fair as well. And I think that's partly Fred Vasseur, the type of influence that he has as a manager as well, and how open he is with the team. And he's very much a Toto Wolff style management guru, right? He likes everyone to be able to chip in and say what they feel. No one is below having a good idea. He's very encouraging of that. And I think that's coming out in the drivers too. I think Carlos has been a bit more vocal. And Team Charlie overall have just been better for it, I think, this year. I mean, they've still made mistakes. There's still been the odd error here and there. They've still gone for plan C, D, E, F, G at times, and it's all looked a bit crazy. But Wajid's right. I think the best drive he's ever had was Monza, but this was a close second just because of the way that, he saw an opportunity at the start. I think he already had it in his mind. He went to bed that night and he went, do you know what's going to happen in the morning? Those idiots in front are going to try and run each other wide. I know it. I'm going to take a wider line, swing back, and undercut them. And I think he'd been playing that through in his mind before. He practiced that in his head. And I also think, I take issue a little bit with what Wajid said. I don't think this was out of the blue. They've been competitive for 4 or 5 races. Sure, they haven't been absolutely McLaren, pinnacle speed. But if you listen to all of the team managers, particularly on Friday and Friday practice and through the sprint, almost everyone to a man, including Zach Brown, said he felt Ferrari had the better car this weekend. He felt they were more suited to COTA than anyone else. They were better on tyres. They had good top speeds. They were better through the corners. They were more stable. They didn't seem to be eating anything. And they had the ability of being out front where they could use some strategy and avoid the undercut, which, by the way, a lot of other drivers didn't avoid. There were a lot of other drivers that did the undercut and actually lost out. So I don't think it was that unexpected. But I think the issue with it, of course, is that those 4 teams at the front are so close every weekend now. We can never really tell who's going to have the edge one weekend to the next. Sometimes it's McLaren, sometimes it's been Mercedes, sometimes it's still been Red Bull, and sometimes it's Ferrari. And I think that from that point of view, as an F1 fan, I think it's amazing. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's great to have the 4 teams going. I mean, I've got to be honest.
And 7 drivers with a chance of a win.
Yeah, until yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about Carlos Slim, little boy, very, very soon. But in terms of, we had the sprint to give us some kind of idea. We always say the sprint gives us some kind of idea, and even though we still hate the sprint, got to be honest, it gave us something on Saturday. But if you had said a Ferrari's going to win, you would not have said Charles Leclerc on Saturday.
No, yeah, I mean that's fair, but I think sprints are a weird weekend. I think there's always an element of like holding back and not really putting everything into, and I think it depends on grid position as well as to where you are and what you've got. And I don't get the sense that all drivers take the sprint as seriously
Yeah.
or as well as each other do. Like, you know, George seems to be like, he loves them. He seems to go hell for leather. He wants to overtake and he wants to be aggressive, and that's cost him sometimes, but he wants to go for it. The others, I get the sense that like Charles doesn't really care about sprints too much. He's almost using it as a practice session. I don't know.
Yes, we do have Paul.
I would rather we didn't have these type of sprints. I've got a great idea, but it'd take too long to explain. But I'd rather we didn't have them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've both been very clear that we're not very clear.
We've been very, very clear on what we think on these sprint races.
Yeah, I think they spoil the specialness as well on a Sunday. Of, you know, it's a Grand Prix for crying out loud.
Yeah, what's going to happen really?
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously Ferrari running away with it. We've got Mexico coming up next. Not been terrible around there Ferrari before. Always maybe one or two on the podium. Brazil, yeah, okay. The last time they did any good, they had Massa in the car. Vegas, they're very quick at. Qatar, maybe not so. And then, like we keep saying about Abu Dhabi, Wajid, it's literally anybody's shot. Can Ferrari manipulate this into a championship challenge? I mean, we're looking, what are we looking with the points? Let's bring them up at the moment. Max on 354, 297 and 275.
So I think Lando's 56, and then Charles is another 20. Is another 23, 22, but 22 behind Lando. So he's 78 points behind.
Yeah. So do we think with that?
Is it 5 races to go?
5 races to go. So we've got 25 and 2 sprints.
So
164 points.
164 points.
Yeah. So it's going to be tough.
Well, Charles effectively has to outscore Max by double every single weekend between now and
146.
146. Thank you.
Yeah.
Charles has to effectively score double the amount of points between now and Abu Dhabi for the next 5 race weeks, and Lando's just shit. So you know,
I mean, Lee's right there. We probably need a DNF to sort of say it, but you know, now we're starting to see the 2021 Max coming back, which we've always been very clear has never gone away. It's just he's never been challenged. Is that going to open up the door for more things to happen? If somebody like Lando just goes, you know what, I'm not going to back out. I'm going to do a Lewis, and we're going to have a crash.
Paul, I'll let you go first.
Well, I think on the Lando Max thing, I think Lando had a chance in Austria to kind of go, I'm going to put a marker in the sand. Yeah, we're friends off the track, but my God, don't fuck with me on the track, Max, because I will fucking have you off. And I think he had a chance to do it in Austria, and he didn't. Yeah. He's had chances since then to do it, and he hasn't. And I get the feeling that, unfortunately, mentally now, I think Max is in his head. I genuinely do. So from that point of view, it's over. And I actually think the championship was over before it even began. I'm going to give you a couple of stats. One is this, right? These are things to think about as we go into the last 5 races.
Yeah.
146 points up for grabs, sure. Max has had 1 retirement all season. Technically, Lando's also had 1 because he finished 20th. Yeah. But that aside, you would assume that neither of them are going to have any more retirements. However, there is one thing that no one is talking about right now, and I'm surprised they're not talking about it. And that's the fact that there are some elements of mechanical potential for both teams. So, for instance, Max is on his 5th ICE right now. They're only at L4. He's on his 5th. And there is a chance that he might have to take another one in the last 5 races. That could cause issues. Because if it ends up being a 15-place grid penalty, he goes to the back. So that's an actual start from the back. And we've seen it's not straightforward anymore. He can't just glide his way through and finish on the podium. So that's one thing to think about. McLaren are on all of their maximums right now. They've had 4 ICEs, they've had 4 TCs, 4 MGUHs, 4 MGUKs. They're on the limit, right? The only thing they've got left is about 7 exhausts. So they could use as many exhausts as they bloody want for the last 5. But everything else is on the max of what they've had in their pool. So again, it only takes one small failure in qualifying or practice or anywhere else, and they lose that as well. So they could then have a penalty. So those are things to think about in the background for both men. Secondly, I'm going to give you this, right? Back at Imola, and I think all 3 of us can agree that up to Imola, that's round 7, Max had taken 7 poles and 5 races and would likely have taken 6 had he not retired. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the first 7 races up to Imola. He had a 57-point lead over Lando Norris after Imola. He currently has a 57-point lead over Lando Norris with 5 races to go. This was never a championship. Move on. This was never going to be on. Stop
Paul.
bloody hyping it up.
I will. I'll come back to that in a minute.
Sorry, I'm just going to step off my soapbox right now and just sit back down again.
Wajid, your view on that? Are you saying that no one's in it and this is Max Wajid, or are we having a 4-time Asterix world champion?
Yeah, but
I've got to be honest. I cannot see, and we'll get onto Red Bull fully in a minute. I cannot see anybody who's been a 4-time world champion where you could put an asterisk next to every single championship. I know that's not against Max. That's Red Bull. That's the FIA. That's
what would you
decision making
this season then?
Well, right now you've got this situation of
the front bib.
The front bib, which
that made a massive difference in the USA, didn't it?
We don't seem to know what that is all about. And McLaren and Ferrari have both said they want to investigate it a little bit more.
So, I think it feels a bit like, and you'll know this, Dave, it feels a bit like Benetton in 1994 when the FIA went, hang on a minute, guys, what's this traction control set? And they went, oh, no, that's just, it's old software from last year. We don't actually use it.
Yeah, it just feels very odd that out of 20 cars, 2 of them for the same team, so 9 out of 10 teams have exactly the same system for this, and Red Bull have something different. And the amount of times that Red Bull have changed little things in Parc Fermé.
But okay.
Just little things.
No. There's a
little bit of damage here. Would somebody notice them?
So then why the fuck is the FIA not doing anything about it? Right.
Because
but this comes back to the same thing we've been having for years, and I've explained this to a lot of people in the past who are fairly casual to F1, and they kind of get it afterwards. But here's my point, right? This has been going on for decades. All the F1 teams have been cheating, if you want to call it that. We call it pushing the envelope, right? It's a technical, mechanical sport driven by humans, but it's primarily driven by technology. And in any technological sport, you're going to have areas where there are grey areas. The rules are permanently written because they are grey and purposely vague, right? Because they want to encourage that kind of enhancements, if you want to call them that, or advancements in technology, and we've benefited from that on our road cars, right? So it's always a good thing to a point.
Like the DAS system in 2020.
DAS system is a really good example where some people are saying, "Oh, but that was illegal. Mercedes should never have put it on the car." No. They should absolutely have put it on the car. It was not in the rules or against the rules. You could argue the spirit of the rules, but who gives a fuck about the spirit of the rules? That's just you if you're an emotional cowboy. You don't need to read the rules. It literally doesn't say DAS is banned, right? I don't care. The fact that you've invented it and then the other teams have gone, well, that don't seem legal. And the FIA have gone, well, technically, guys, it's not against the rules, but we're going to ban it for next year because we don't want an arms race. That's what happened, right? And it's very similar with this front bib. It's technically not against the rules, but it is against what the FIA wrote the rules around, and therefore the other teams are unhappy, and I understand why. But here's why they complain. They don't complain because they want to bitch about it on social media or make our trousers curl up, right? They do it because there is a system in place that's been there for years. Team A puts something on car that Team B hasn't thought of. Team B complains to FIA because 2 things will now happen. The FIA will either say it's absolutely fine, in which Team B now have to spend lots of money in a cost cap system developing that part, or the FIA says, not really within the spirit of the rules, and we don't want an arms race, therefore it's fine for now, but you can't have it on the car for the next race or the next year or whatever it might be. And then Team B goes, thanks very much for clarifying. That's the only reason all the teams club together and complain about this stuff. That's it. They just need the FIA to say yes or no.
But you know why all sort of modern innovations are now going to be banned? Because of the cost cap.
I agree. I think it is partially to do with that. Yeah.
If we were not in a cost cap era, the DAS system would not have been banned.
No, it wouldn't have been banned.
And this bib thing that no one actually knows about yet until investigated.
I mean, if it turns out that actually you can alter something in the cockpit, as it's been rumored, and the driver can alter it, then actually that is against the rules, specifically black and white rules.
Yeah,
but what they're saying is the drivers have never changed anything.
Yeah, but we all
that
know,
doesn't mean that someone in the pit lane hasn't.
But we all know what's going to happen. Absolutely nothing. So
no, of course.
Who
but it's like Ferrari's engine issues a few years ago, right? Ferrari were using a system which technically wasn't actually in the rules as banned, but actually all the other engine guys said, "Come on, guys, we would have done that. We could easily go and do that, but we didn't because we felt it was not within the right spirit of the rule." And then they just went and did it anyway. And then the FIA said, "Yeah, okay." Rather than ban them or retrospectively take their points away, what did they do? They slapped them on the wrist and told them not to do it again. And the following season they were uncompetitive. And so were all their customers. But this has been happening for decades. It's not new.
I now know we're totally off track. From the race.
Sorry.
But it's absolutely fine. But this now leads to another question in regards to Max Verstappen, Red Bull, and these world titles. There are too many asterisks, in my opinion. There are too many asterisks around too many of the cars Max Verstappen has driven for him to ever be classified as an all-time great. Sorry.
I mean, I disagree because I think you're marking the man based on his teams and his performances. I think he would still end up being. I think by the end of his career, we'll look back and go, "Yeah, he's part of that elite group of drivers that come along once in a generation."
No. I'm not debating that. Absolutely, I'm not debating that. But there's now too many asterisks with this team. At the end of the day, there was until Michael won the third at Ferrari, people looked at that 94. People looked at that 94 title with. People looked 94
at definitely because of all the bans and obviously being banned from Belgium, the plank wear, the accident with Hill. That was always going to be an asterisk. The 95 one, I don't think really was an asterisk, was it?
No. But people look at that 90. But until he went to Ferrari and they made that dominant car and stuff and he dominated, people looked at Michael with the same side. Unfortunately, Max Verstappen and Red Bull go hand in hand. 2021 is not 2021 is not his fault. But again, there's too many things in regards to the FIA.
I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it matters in terms of measuring the driver. I think he will still be looked back as an incredible driver. I think you could go back and look at all of Schumacher's years, bar maybe one, and say, actually, did he have a subordinate teammate every season? Yes, absolutely. Did he pick that? Yes, he did. Did he pick someone that had to default to him? Yes, he did. Did he manipulate the results of races? Yes, he did. I think you could go back and find reasons as to why Michael shouldn't have got any of those 7. Maybe other than maybe 95 where he had a dominant car. So that doesn't count because he had a dominant car. Same with Lewis Hamilton. Wow, too dominant. He had the best car in the world for 4 years and no teammates. And again, you can make arguments about that and say, well, actually, compared to Michael, he had Rosberg, world champion, Button, world champion, Alonso, world champion, much better teammates. But then you're starting to compare eras. And I've always said, I don't think you can compare it. You can't compare Senna to Schumacher. They crossed over slightly, but you can't compare them. You can't compare Schumacher and Hamilton. They crossed over slightly. You can't even really compare the early part of Hamilton's career with what Max is doing. And you certainly can't compare Fangio against Clark or Clark against Senna. But they're all generational talents. I firmly believe that. And I don't think history will paint Max any differently. I think some fans will. And I understand why, but overall, I disagree, Wajid. I think he'll be looked back as a generational talent.
As I said, that's just my opinion.
Maybe looking back, I do think, obviously, his skills behind the car is something slightly different to whether he's. I'm not sorry. Dave. Before I'm not questioning the man's skill at all. Yeah,
I've openly said on this podcast many times, he is an unreal. He's an unreal driver. You can
IndyCar fan must have just popped in.
Yeah. No. Like I have said many times on this podcast.
Yeah,
he is 1A, 1B with Lewis and stuff. I've said them like let's get that. Let's in case people need to go back. So sorry, go on, David.
I think with Max, like his driver skill is fine. I think mentally, he is actually. It's quite surprising to hear Helmut say what he said about Lando when Max is quite mentally weak at times as well. Once he gets under pressure, he does break. And we see situations, which we're going to get onto now, which is first to the apex. And just to bring this one in, this happens when you're first to the apex.
That's a 5-second penalty for the guy that hit the wall.
No,
He gets the 5-second penalty because the other guy had the apex.
That's a 5-second penalty for the guy that avoided the crash. What are you talking about? That's how it works, isn't it?
Well, this is what we're going to go into.
No, it's the other way because George Russell got the penalty.
No. He should have been taken out at the same time.
Oh, so you're going with the Lando decision?
Yeah.
No. You can't do that, mate. Oh, hang on. No, we're both right. Oh, we're both wrong.
Well,
Who knew the FIA's job was that easy?
This is the thing. Like, we've obviously spoke about the, I've spoke to somebody who even worked with the FIA on something not F1, and he says it's kind of confusing at times because Yeah. All right. Thanks, Lee. That's going back to my. That's going back to my my iRacing times. See, what Paul does is he just sits there and paints the cars instead. So then you can't have a go at him about it. But yeah, we go back to. Let me see if I can find all the. The classifications and summons and post-race procedures and God knows what is ridiculous. So we had three. So we had a forcing driver off the track, which was car 63. So that was the
that was
Russell versus Bottas. Bottas, I haven't got the clips of that one. I wasn't really prepared, but they were sort of side by side. So I can get why George got that penalty. Wajid, go with you on that one first.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And Paul?
No, absolutely not. Like, if you watch the replay, you clearly see George is ahead at the apex. He dives down the inside. He's on the inside. It wasn't a dive bomb either. It was a perfectly controlled, executed overtake. He wasn't out of control on the exit, so therefore he deserves the turn. Bottas gave him the room, but just ran out wide because it was easier for him to run out wide rather than tighten up the apex. Otherwise, he might have hit Lando. They can't see out these fucking cars, by the way. So he just takes that line naturally round the outside. George stays on the track and gives him room as well. So it's not like the Max one where Max is off the track forcing Lando to go even further across the track. George just overtake. It's just a normal overtake, which is why when he gets told over the radio, he's like, what?
Yeah.
What the fuck is that for? Because he's like genuinely like, he's the head of the GPDA for crying out loud. He understands what the rules are. He knows what safety is. He didn't put another driver at risk. He didn't put him at any peril. And certainly Valtteri afterwards was just like, oh, there was no issue. So,
yeah.
Well, hang on then. So why has George got a penalty? Well, then, okay. Well, then, all right. We accept that George gets the penalty then. So then Max gets the penalty then. Same deal. Did exactly the same, if not worse, because he went off the track as well. So then penalise Max then. But Lando got that one. So then you get the idiots from England who go, oh, conspiracy, because all the English drivers have got penalties. Fuck off, you idiots. That's not why they got them. They got them because the FIA is stupid and inconsistent.
Wajid, like, obviously, George, we had this, but just before that, we had the first corner one, which is really hard to argue because we had the Lewis Rosberg one at the first corner before, and we've never given a penalty for running off at the first corner on the first lap of race because apparently it's completely different. Of
course. But
we go to the George Russell one, and then we also, in that time, we see cars side by side a couple of corners later. I'm thinking of Yuki Tsunoda, I think it was, going around the outside of Alex Albon,
and
throws it off the track and keeps the place, but no penalty.
No. Well, he's not fighting for a world championship, is he? So
literally, Paul's taking the words right out of my mouth. It's literally what it's down to.
You can understand why people get skeptical. I'm not that skeptical when it comes to this stuff because I've been around F1 for more than 40 years. And I've followed it to a very high, deep level, right? So I've seen a lot of this stuff before. It's not new to me. But even I'm skeptical about some of this stuff now. And if I'm skeptical as a non-skeptic, imagine what the conspiracy theory F1 fans are like right now. Imagine what Team LH are like right now.
In fairness, if you look at
literally
Team LH,
eating each other's ears off because they don't know what's going on.
No, if you look at Team LH, them and Max Verstappen fans have banded together because they don't like Lando. But That's a whole.
That's a whole different
that's a whole
Who knew
argument.
that was ever a thing?
Yeah.
That we're gonna have,
The thing is, surely you've got.
I just want consistency. Wajid.
Yeah,
That's
no.
what I want.
Joyce, no. Do you know what? That's like aside from 2021, that's the second most used word on this channel.
Yeah.
Consistency.
And that's just from us. Never mind the FIA.
Yeah. If I'm Lando Norris and McLaren in that situation, let's put the FIA decision aside. But I think we all agree what the hell's going on. All right. But let's put that decision to the side. If I am Lando Norris and McLaren with 5 laps to go, when you know you're not going to go at a second a lap if you're getting the 5-second penalty, and I think the FIA's justification was, in regards to penalty, he didn't get a penalty for taking an advantage. He got a penalty because he'd gone off the track 4 times.
Yeah.
That's the penalty. That's the loophole on. However, if I'm McLaren, if I'm Lando, just give him the position back. You have 5 laps. Max's tires are clearly going off the edge, right? Just give him the place back at the end of turn 1, or around or make it really awkward overtake around the S's into turn 2, 3, and 4. But just just make sure you're thereabouts at the straight again, because you'll have him. You're on, I think, 10-15 lap fresher tires, something stupid like that at the time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Wajid. I think it's, it's something that no one's really talking about, is it? Because they're mostly focusing on the issues.
Because everyone's so focused about the penalty.
Yeah. But you're right. I think it is an error. Aside from whatever happened on the penalty side, I absolutely agree. 5 laps to go, much fresher tires, quicker car. You'll get another opportunity in the next 5 laps to just let him back past and then do it again.
This is the other thing. This is the other thing for me as well, which again no one else has thought about. You're fighting for a world title. You are fighting for a world title. Your teammate is behind you again on fresher tires. If you overtake Max on the next lap,
back him up into him.
Back him up into it.
I thought about exactly the same thing when I was watching it.
Because that S section is so slow, you could lose a second and a half, 2 seconds
easily.
What
did he finish behind him? 1.3, 1.7, something like that.
Something stupid. Something
really
stupid.
close.
Yeah. So the penalty aside, and this is now going back to the world title thing. This is why I don't think there's a world title fight, because McLaren and Lando have made so many mistakes.
They have, but I think that's okay as well. I think
no, not to
McLaren haven't been in a title fight for 20 years.
No,
Don't have that kind of experience. Lando's in his first ever title fight.
That's not an excuse. That's not. I'm
sorry.
It is. No, it's not. It's not, because we're not talking about a rookie driver. We're not talking about a driver in his first year. You're talking about a guy who is 7-8 years in. Okay, cool.
Sure,
McLaren
but it's different trying to win a world title and different trying to win races.
No, but
it is just being in F1.
But then don't run your mouth years ago about how you should win in the quickest car and stuff like that. Keep your mouth.
Years ago, it was a few races ago, wasn't it?
No, but then keep your mouth shut.
No, I agree. I agree with that.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't talk like you're a big man. And again, this is what I come down to. Red Bull fear Lewis Hamilton. Not even Mercedes. Red Bull fear Lewis Hamilton, because that is the only man mentally strong enough to go against Max Verstappen. Max is laughing and joking with Charles and Lando because he does not see them in the same line. Yeah. Max does not see Lando as a title. Max does not see Lando as a title challenger. Max does not see Charles as a title challenger. This is why David and I have consistently said, if you had put Lewis Hamilton in either the McLaren or the Ferrari this year, you have a world title fight. And I don't see, and the other thing is with the McLaren team under Zach Brown, I don't see them learning from these mistakes. I do not
think
see
that's
them.
unfair, though. I think if you look at the way he's managed this team and the way they have overcome mistakes that they've made in the past, I think they've done a great job.
I don't.
Like,
Unfortunately,
you think of everything they've done, whether it be development, whether it be the car, whether it be the way they work with Lando, Daniel moving out, whatever it was, they've learned every time and moved on and got better. And now they're at a point where they're actually challenging for world championship and winning races on a regular. Would we have said that when Alonso was there 5-6 years ago? No way. They've definitely learned. I think you're being a bit harsh on them, but I will concede that this is Formula One. It's the Piranha Club. They should be doing better because it's Formula One. There's no excuse for failure in the Formula One. But my point is purely that actually, as an F1 fan, I've really enjoyed it because they fucked up occasionally because it's meant that we've had some really strange results in the last 10 or 11 races. It's been more exciting in the last 10 or 11 races than I can remember it for a very long time. So as a neutral in all of this, I'm loving it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously we haven't got the video. F1 would take us down. Not that we're getting paddock passes anyway, because we don't know the right people. But yeah, so we've got right here the sort of the McLaren Red Bull thing, and we can see obviously Lando's made the move around the outside. Now, the FIA sporting code doesn't come into this. It's the rules of engagement which were brought up because of Max a number of years ago. So it was the rule of being first to the apex. Now, my problem with this, and I don't know if the two Wajid and Paul agree, but there seems to be, let's be first to the apex, but then a little bit further down, they seem to forget the other rule of you must give space on the exit if the car's alongside. So it's almost contradictory because, like a lot of people have said, in this position here, it means if Max just gets off the brake and just does whatever he wants to be, clever, wise,
which he did.
Christian Horner did. Yeah, I mean, he's adamant he didn't, but he did.
He absolutely did.
You get to this position here, and in my mind, Lando should be given space because he is still there. And the old rule that I used to have in karting, because obviously, like Paul's and Wajid have watched a lot of racing and commentated and anything. What we had in karting was if you've got halfway alongside, you deserve a space. And there, we still not got the front-facing camera of Red Bull. And that, I know conspiracy theories and everything, but why, when we've been looking at the whole race from the front of Max Verstappen's car, can we not suddenly see forward in this period? That's my question about it. Wajid, we'll go with you first. On this incident as a whole, but obviously about the Red Bull front-facing camera.
Thing is, I don't know. And this is the problem. This is why all the conspiracy points. By the way, do you know those still images that we're now seeing? That's an indictment on McLaren if they said you're ahead of the apex. That's a total indictment. Yes,
but why should? This is what I'm saying. Like, why should we have this? Are you ahead at the apex? You can do what you like afterwards. For me, on that view, both cars are side by side. You should be given room.
And I totally agree. However, has Max Verstappen in his entire history of overtaking and racing ever given someone room?
I think that's why Lando's on the outside. He had room to go on the inside, but he wasn't going to risk that because he knows what's going to happen.
No, but I'm with Paul. You got to do what Lewis did in Italy, which is if we're both going out, we're both going out. Yeah. Is what it is. Like you have to do something. You have to do something at some point. But I mean, the problem. My problem is I just keep on coming back to the fact he was on 10 to 15 lap fresher tires. Right, he was getting closer. You could see in that S section, he was getting closer and closer and closer.
Yeah,
I don't know why he didn't take a wider line into that hairpin. By the way, because the reason Max was getting a better drive is because Max knew if I get a wider line, I could put my foot down and I'll pull an extra tenth or two. I don't know why Lando kept on taking a narrow line. That's besides the point. I just keep on coming back to the fact that Lando Norris shouldn't be in this position in the first place Because if he just gives the fucking position back, we're not having this conversation. And I know people are saying about, oh well, when was it registered as going off the track, going off the track. If he slows down, he's only on 3 warnings. This is considered as one of the leaving the track, and then he's gained an advantage on top of that, which is the issue.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, regardless of anything, that's what I keep on coming back to in this situation. It's just another mistake for absolutely no reason. Paul, I'll pass it over to you.
I think there's a number of points that you know, I won't dwell on them, that you've already made them well, Wajid, anyway. The first one is that, you know, if we can see that Max is ahead at the apex, then why isn't someone, not Will Joseph, but someone at McLaren, why aren't they looking at the replay and going, actually, Will, Max was ahead, we need to give that place back? Why aren't they doing that within 30 seconds of that happening? So that's the first thing. It's all that technology is there. They've got people in the McLaren bunker back at Woking that can give them that info straight away over comms. Yeah. I don't know why they haven't done that. Secondly, the rule was invented because of Max. This is the Max Apex rule. This is why we brought it in the first place, because he wasn't giving any room to anyone. But at the same time, David's right in that you still need to give space on the exit. You can't just run them out. And I think if you roll this on to the other picture where we get them to the exit, you'll see that actually what happens is, not that one, the one before, that one. This one, it's hard to see on this image, but actually when you see this image larger, you'll see that Max's wheels are pointing straight on. Where's he going? The fucking grandstand?
This is actually
that's a 90-degree left. Like, what the fuck are you doing aiming at the fucking grandstands? I'll tell you what he's doing. He's running Lando off the fucking track. Cleverly, because he thinks, hang on, this is the apex rule. If he runs out wide and then I slow down and he thinks he can overtake me, which is what happened, by the way. Don't listen to Christian Horner. It's exactly what Max did. He knew what he was doing. I think it's brilliant. I think it's really clever. It's the sort of devious thing that Senna would do or Schumacher would do. It's exactly the same thing, right? Because Max he's only using 50% of his brain power to drive the fucking car. The rest of it's thinking about what he's going to have for lunch on Monday and, you know, whether he's going to bang his hot girlfriend or, like, actually, oh, look, Lando's coming. I can fuck with him now. A bit of fun. That's what Max is thinking right now. And so he's aiming straight off the track at this point. And Lando knows this. McLaren knows this. This is why it's rookie errors, because they know this is what's going to happen. He literally baited them into making the move, gave him the place, knowing full well he either gives it back, and then Max has got another shot at keeping him behind. And every time he does that, there's a little bit more doubt in Lando's mind as whether he can actually go toe-to-toe with Max in a race, which he still hasn't done, by the way, successfully in the entirety of this season. And it started off with Austria. And this is why I said to you guys earlier, I don't remember if we said this on stream or not. My final point on this is this.
Yep.
Had Lando put his foot down in Austria and said, no, fuck you, Max, I'm going to overtake you, and actually made the overtake instead of just crashing into him, this would not be happening right now. We would not be having these arguments. This is a failure on Lando's part of being mentally strong in the attack of Red Bull. And this is why they don't respect him in the championship. This is why they think that, Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari or a McLaren, fuck, that might be quite scary. But actually, these other guys, we can fucking do their heads. We just mess around with their heads.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was just trying to find a certain picture, which, I mean, this is the one at the end where obviously we see them both off the track. So, I mean, we know what Max has done. And like you say, it's very clever that he will read every piece of rule and work out how he can play it. And we know Schumacher was very good at that. I mean, we look at, I mean, I still, controversially, and a lot of people will shout me down for this, don't 100% think 97 he was trying to run Jack off the track.
Yeah.
If we look at,
I don't think he was trying to run him off, but he knew full well that if he dove down the inside, there was an opportunity. There was a chance that he would probably either knock Jack out of the way and carry on, or that he would break his car, and that would be the end of it. I think it was one of those like, I've got to go for it now.
Yeah, I think it was one of them where he's got to go for it. But if you always remember with that one, Jack went into the corner, locked up, ran onto the grass, and would have ran Michael off the track at the end of that if they hadn't hit each other.
But that's different though, David, because it's Michael Schumacher saying, I'm coming
is a
down the
picture.
inside, get the fuck out of the way, or we have an accident, right? And that's what Michael Schumacher was always like. He did it to Damon Hill, he did it to Frentzen, he did it to Wendlinger, he did it to Hakkinen, like all of those. He did it to. The only one,
Hakkinen, Kimi.
Exactly. The only one that stood up to him and that he had the respect for was Mika Hakkinen.
Speaking of Kimi, his son's on the way up the paddock. He's racing this weekend at the Grand Finals. This is the one image which I think possibly got Lando the penalty, is that he's on full lock. Well, the wheels don't look like they're on full lock. The turn look. He never actually. If he had gone almost and wobbled and sort of said, look, I've been
forced off.
But his
wheel
stays the same.
Yeah.
All the way through until he straightens up. So that's where I think he got the penalty, because it doesn't look like he's tried to stay on track. Personally.
Yeah, but then then go back to and have a look at the Bottas one, because that's the same. So why did Bottas get a penalty then? And then we're back to the whole, the inconsistencies of those three moves, the Tsunoda move, which he did round the outside that Lando did, that he didn't get a penalty for, or the George move, which he did up the inside, where he overtook Bottas on the track, which he got a penalty for. So all three people that overtook all had different results.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the documents just in front of me. So there's the Lando Norris leaving the track and gaining an advantage. So it wasn't for track limits because it doesn't count, because he gained an advantage. For some reason, it doesn't come up as an extra one. I never understood why everybody was saying it should be a 10-second penalty, but we've made it a 5. That kind of didn't really make sense. Esteban Ocon got one for leaving the track and gaining lasting advantage at turn 15, 5-second penalty. Yuki got a 5-second penalty for forcing Albon off track, which is ironic because he'd already overtook Albon around the outside. So I don't know where that one comes from. So there's so many different ones, but I think the best one of all was Red Bull going, Max lost a podium for the same thing a few years ago with Kimi. No, here at Kota, he drove and cut the corner to get a podium. It's a different situation altogether. But I think out of all of that, we're just saying it needs to be consistent, and we're not getting consistency. So is it, from what I'm hearing from a few people, that we haven't got the consistency with the stewards, and also that we've got a steward? I mean, Derek Warwick, very good driver of the year, but hasn't done a competitive race since about 1998.
Yeah, and I think that's, I hadn't really thought about that too much recently, but they do have a range of stewards in there. Alex Wirtz has been in there. Probably hasn't been in the F1 car for 20 years. Johnny Herbert hasn't been in an F1 car for about 25 years. Derek Warwick has also been in there. They've had a couple of others here and there. Alex Caffey's been in there at times. Ivan Capelli's been in there. Like, they've had a few different driver stewards, and I think it's great that they've got someone from F1 or an F1 background in the room helping the stewards kind of have a look at those things. But I also feel like it needs to be someone closer to what's been going. How about, and I'm just going to throw this out there, I haven't really thought this through, but how about having a couple of the reserve drivers in there that have at least got relative experience in these cars? They know what it's like to drive them and how blind they are in these cars, and also have relatively recent race experience in either Formula 3, Formula 2, or even Formula 1. That would
conspiracy theory side.
Well, they're going to be biased towards one team.
I was going to say, I don't think that would quite work, because all the reserve drivers are trying to get a drive in a team.
Sure. Well, then go and get some that are, outside of F1 or retired now. But it's very difficult to go back. I
think the latest one, which I can think of off the top of my head, is Liuzzi.
Yeah, Liuzzi did. I would also point this out as well, and I happen to know this again from someone inside. The driver has no power in that steward room. In other words, the driver can't, if it's Derek Warwick, he can't suddenly go, right, gents, right there, what you've just seen, that's a penalty for Lando Norris. And they go, okay, Derek, thanks for that. We'll issue the penalty. That's not how it works. Because I know that a lot of the casual viewers think that is how it works. That's not how it works. The driver is a consultant. They're not even paid by the FIA. They're hired on a per basis, like consultancy basis, basically. They're consultants. That's all they're, glorified consultants. So the stewards are the stewards who are consistent at every race. They're the ones with all the experience. They will talk about something, and then occasionally they may say, we're having a bit of trouble with this one. Derek, what's your view on this? And he'll say what he thinks, and they'll then take that on advisory. And that means they go, yeah, we disagree with it. He's talking a load of shit, so we're going to go with this decision. Or they go, that's actually a really good point. We'll put that into the decision. That's how it works. It's not Derek Warwick in there deciding what these penalties should be. So don't go down that road. I've seen a lot of people talking about that recently. It's not how it works.
I'm just having a look. I've literally got a list of the current F1 driver stewards and people who have done it previously. So previously, Mick Doohan, never understood that one. 2 wheels, 4 wheels, not quite the same. Emerson Fittipaldi, Alan Jones, Nigel Mansell, Jochen Mass, Alan McNish is probably the latest one in that, and Mark Blundell. And then in the current ones, Tom Christensen, Felipe Giafoni from IndyCar. I mean, I don't know where that one comes in. They don't know about track limits. Derek Daly, Emmanuel Pirro, who last drove an F1 car early 90s, maybe. Mika Salo, we know he last raced in 2000.
Ferrari one-off drive, or a couple of drives, didn't he?
He drove for Toyota.
He had Toyota as well, didn't he? Yeah.
Well, did he get? Yeah, 2001.
It wasn't 2000.
Early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s.
So early 2000s. Danny Sullivan, who was Indy IRL person.
Well, he was also Tyrrell driver up to 1983.
See, I knew we had Paul here for something.
Not really relevant now, but okay.
Yeah. So there's nobody relevant. And I just wonder if it's a bit like, I mean, you think about the drivers who can do it. Jenson Button, for example, he's got too many friends in the paddock. And I think drivers are too scared to go and make that decision now because they've got friends and they don't want the backlash. And also...
God help us, you're going to say Nico Rosberg.
Well, look at it this way. You look at the people who are on the press side of things. They've all gone there because they're getting paid a damn sight more to go and do it. You know, they have a gig in and out on that. What's this? You need a certain iRacing sort of a type. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's the case.
Can we actually, that's a good idea. Can we send all of the current stewards on an iRacing steward course?
Yeah,
and get them verified with a decent safety rating. On
I mean, I will say,
only when they've got a 4.99 can they actually go and become an F1 steward.
I mean, the decisions do come through a damn sight quicker than a couple of laps later.
And they're much clearer, by the way.
Yeah, but in terms of the whole stewarding, I mean, I'm trying to think. We need somebody who is there every race to keep the opinion consistent. Because
you have that already. You have a team of stewards. It's not one person.
No, but the driver should be.
No, I get.
Consistent.
I think you're right. They should hire someone full time, but it must be very difficult to do that. And think about who would want to do it. You know, Jenson Button's got lots of other stuff he wants to go and do in life. He's done with F1. He doesn't want to be on the F1 calendar all year. 24 races, no thanks.
Look, Nikita Mazepin said he was not going to come back to F1 when his ban was over. Maybe that's where.
The steward's decision presented by Ural Kali.
And on that, damage limitation, gentlemen.
Yeah, damage limitation. This title is a lot to do with Red Bull. You know, we very briefly went over the tea tray underneath, and I'm sure there might be more coming out about that in Mexico. This is more Max finally back on there with, you know, winning the sprint, being competitive to a point in the race. I want to talk about Carlos Slim's favourite son, or apparently not anymore, that actually somebody wants, Mr. Millionaire or billionaire or trillionaire, whatever he is, wants to put his money into Franco Colapinto.
Apparently so.
Wajid, let's throw this open to you. First, on them rumours, do you think it could even be true? And secondly,
no, they're not.
Could we see Max, Lawson, and then RB, Yuki, Colapinto?
No. Next.
I mean, Red Bull do know about stealing people. I mean, I think Alex Albon had a Nissan contract, wasn't it? And then they got him out of that.
It's not happening. It's not happening. Because
Go on.
he's Colapinto's with Mercedes, right?
Williams.
No, he's just Williams Jr.
Oh, he's just a Williams Jr.
He's Williams Jr.
He's been told he's a Williams. He'll be he can't have the FP1s next year because he's already done so many races, so he won't be able to do that. So I guess
reserve, so
they will go to Luke Browning, I guess.
It's not happening. I think there's a better chance he ends up in the Williams in 2026 than ending up in a Red Bull seat.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate because he's been a pretty bang average lower Formula driver. Like his Formula 3 wasn't great. His Formula 2 hasn't been particularly stunning. He's had the odd flash in the pan, but then almost everyone
He'd stick it on a completely random F3 pole, wouldn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
That was all he would ever do.
Yeah, and some reverse grid sprint races here and there. But he's not really stood out. But then I would argue, go back and have a look at Fernando Alonso in Junior Formula. Wasn't great. Wasn't particularly great until he won one race in Formula 3000 at Spa one weekend in the wet. And everyone went, holy shit, this kid's good. But he was fucking crashing all over the place for 12 weeks before it. Couldn't keep the car on the island. So I don't always judge a driver by how well or badly they did in lower Formula because you can't always tell. Generally speaking, the good ones shine through. Charles Leclerc won F3 and F2, F1 driver winner. Oscar Piastri won F3, F2 in consecutive seasons, both as a rookie, by the way. F1 winner. George Russell won F3 and F2 consecutively, not as a rookie, but consecutively. Good F1 driver, he's won races. So you could generally go, that's a good path. But by the same token, you can't judge a guy who finished 11th in Formula 3 and is currently like 9th in Formula 2 as a not going to do very well in F1. When he comes into F1 and he drives the way he's been driving, he's driven the wheels off that Williams. He suddenly makes Albon look like a pretty bang average driver, frankly. Certainly doesn't look like the Don he's looked at before. Well, I'm stealing your thunder.
I was going to get onto that later, but we'll do it now.
Well, it's part of the same. It's part of the same thing. Right? Because now Williams have got a headache now because they're like, "Oh fuck, that's not what was supposed to happen." We've signed Carlos Sainz. We've spent a load of money on the guy, and now this kid's come along and made us fucking awkward, right? And he's under contract for next year as a reserve driver because that was always how it was signed up in the first place. He was never meant to be anything more than that, and now all of a sudden he's hot property. So now does he end up being sold to someone else to make some money for Williams? Maybe, but I can't see it being read by. I don't see it working like that. Same as Wajid said, it just doesn't fit right. I can, however, just as a side thing, see Lawson being kind of diverted into the main team if Perez has another absolute howler start to next year. No problem at all with that. But they'll probably promote Hadjar into the junior team. Yeah. So they've already got like a framework of drivers around that anyway that are ready to go. I don't see them introducing a wild card into that. And it could just be one of those wild things. Look back to last year. What happened at Williams the year before last? What happened? Has everyone forgotten? Because there was a certain driver went into that car and looked very good in that car for a race and almost on a par with Albon and brought it home in the points. And everyone went, oh my God, this kid's amazing. We should sign him up. And Red Bull went, we'll put him in our junior team. And then fired him eight races into the season because he was shit.
Agreed.
So why would they do the same thing again for Colapinto, who showed exactly the same kind of... No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but why I see it more likely to happen is because with De Vries, it was one race. Williams were very good around Monza, whatever happened. We know that at the time. Whereas now, I said it to you, Wajid, when Colapinto came in. A very good debut, but let's see what happens in Singapore. Then all of a sudden, Singapore, and you're like, okay, Singapore's a bit weird. That's fine. Let's wait for Kota. Kota, the guy's got 5 points already. He's ahead of Esteban, equal with Esteban Ocon.
I can't deny he's had a great start to his F1. Honestly,
yeah,
way above anyone's expectation. No one, not even James Vowles thought he was this good. Right? He's caused real headaches with the Williams team, so he's surprised everyone, and that's great. And he brings lots of new Argentinian fans, and that's great for F1 as well. Lots of potential new sponsors from South America, and that's great too. But if you're telling me that Carlos Slim, a Mexican, a proud Mexican, who has got billions and billions and billions and trillions of monies, is suddenly gone, do you know what I'll do? I've had a bright thought this morning. I'm going to support an Argentinian. Not going to happen. You have to understand the passion of the people that in South America. They're very, very circular. Like they roam around the people that they love. In other words, Brazilians go around Brazilians, Mexicans support Mexicans, Argentinians support Argentinians. That's how it works in South America. And Mexico's not even technically in South America. It's in bloody Latin America. It's in the middle bit. Carlos Slim is not losing any sleep about spending any money whatsoever over Colapinto. When also, by the way, there are loads of companies queuing up to spend money with Williams because of Colapinto.
Just so we don't add another entire group of people to piss off on the community, Mexico is part of Latin America. It's just Central America.
Oh no, we've already pissed the Mexicans off already because we've been on about Perez out for the whole season.
I don't want.
British, so we've already annoyed the Argentinians. So
I don't want
to piss off Jeremy Clarkson. So
I don't want to piss off the rest of Latin America.
Very true.
In terms of damage limitation, Max does what Max does. The car has not been the quickest car since Imola, but the man finds a way to get results. He might not be in the podium, but
just like Michael did, right?
Yeah, just like
Senna did.
Just like Michael, just like Senna, just like Lewis, just like Nico in his world title. Yeah.
Just remember what I said at the start of the show. 57 points ahead of Lando after Imola, of which he'd had 7 consecutive poles and 5 out of 7 wins. He's still 57 points ahead of Lando.
Max is amazing at extracting what he can. Yeah. He's clever with the rules. And I think he goes to Mexico, and that Red Bull is always amazing in Mexico. I don't know, it's a high altitude stuff like that.
That's going to be the interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is. They had mega top speed there last year.
If Max wins in Mexico, then I think all this title talk is officially over.
I think you're right. I think also though, but like I said before, there are some issues around like components, right? So they have one blowout in practice or qualifying, and that's a really bad race for Max, and potentially a low scoring race.
I could see,
or worse, it happens in the race, and then Lando wins, and suddenly it's 20 odd points in it, and then then 4 races to go, people are going to get hyped again, aren't they? I think this is done. I think this was done months ago. I think we've had a really fun summer. We've had a really interesting 10 races where Mercedes and Ferrari and McLaren have won race. It's the best season for a very long time. Like, I have to go back to like 1986 really before I can really think about a season that was this close amongst 3 or 4 different teams. And back then we had Ferrari, Lotus, McLaren and Williams fighting for wins. So this feels very similar to that. We also had some incredible drivers back then, by the way. Senna was in the Lotus, so he was kind of out in the wrong team. But we had Prost in the McLaren, which was actually technically the 3rd fastest car at the time, which is basically what Max is right now. Max is in the 3rd fastest car and is about to win the world title. This is going to be the first time we've seen that since probably 1986.
I will say one thing though, like you've already mentioned it, like sort of Hadjar would probably be next in line, and Paul's a lot more up on the Formula 2 and Formula 3 details than we are. But we have a look at the junior Formula. Iwasa was sent to Super Formula. Yeah. I think, to be honest, because he's Honda, and they didn't want to have to promote another Honda person. Yeah. And I would say Pepe Martin is probably going to be lucky to keep it on.
I think he'll be lucky to keep his Red Bull sponsorship, to be honest.
Yeah, Tim Tramnitz is there with F3.
Yeah, Tramnitz will do another season of F3. He's fine. The one that they're all talking about right now in the background is Arvid Lindblad. Yeah, Lindblad is the hot problem. He's already got a gig in F2 for next season, by the way. He's already signed up.
And
they've already signed him up. Yeah, and he is already a hot shoe-in for doing really well. He's done incredibly well. A feature in the title race.
I'm trying to think who he's
right to the very end race of F3. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Honestly, he's the one that Red Bull are really pinning a lot of hopes on in the next 2 years, 3 years, depending on what happens around the junior team.
Yeah, I think both of them will. I think Gertha will stay at Campos and team up with Lindblad.
Yeah, so Gertha's going to move. At the moment, he's due to move to F2 because he's in F2 right now. He's taken on the end of the season. So potentially he's going to be there for next year, but he hasn't been confirmed. The only one confirmed right now is Lindblad for next year.
There's Lindblad in Campos, Crawford in Downs.
I mean, in terms of the Red Bull guys.
Yeah. And Fornaroli, who nobody seems to have signed up from his winless F3 championship, which is weirdest thing ever to say.
It's such a fluky thing, honestly. I mean, he was relatively consistent, but he wasn't brilliantly consistent either. He had some blowout weekends throughout the season. It's been a weird F3. Like, really, that should have been Boganovic's F3 title, and then he would have reaffirmed himself as a Prima driver and a Ferrari junior. And he just didn't do it. And I think he's stalled a bit. And unfortunately, he needs to jump to F2 now to re-establish himself as a potential Formula One guy in the future, because at the moment it's just running away from. He was the one. He was ahead of Kimi Antonelli. He was the guy that was going to make it to F1 before anyone else, and it's just fallen away from him. And I genuinely think he's a really talented driver, but it's not gone well for him.
For me, I think Hadjard's, because he's lost the lead of a championship to Bortoleto, who has gone very quiet on the Sauber drive. Zane Maloney's catching him up, and Zane Maloney is Sauber base.
Yeah, he's a Sauber junior,
whatever he calls.
Yeah,
Hadjar I feel like he's lost it to Lindblad. He's not the next in line. Because
I think Lindblad needs a season in F2 at the very least to establish the fact that he is actually what we think he is, and I think he will be. Hadjar, the weirdest thing about Hadjar is that they had 6 junior drivers in F2 last season, right?
Yeah.
Red Bull, and that's too many. And it was confusing to watch because there were too many Red Bull cars
in different teams.
Yeah, exactly, all in different teams as well. So all the liveries were slightly different as well. So you're like, bloody hell, is that him or is that?
I think the only one you knew was Fittipaldi because he had a kick on the side.
He had a bit different on it. But so this year, when they trimmed down to 2 and both of them are at the Campos, and you've got Marty, who's an established, he's been there, he's done some F3, he's done pretty well, he's in the title fight, shown good pace, good speed, arsehole in iRacing, but we'll ignore that. And you've got Hadjar, who's coming back for more F2. I thought Hadjar was the surprise stayer of the 6 drivers they had. I was surprised that Hadjar was one of the ones they kept. And then, of course, he's had a really good season in F2, been very consistent in a difficult year where we're all trying to learn the new car, and the teams aren't all competitive on the new car either. And I was very genuinely surprised that he was a title front runner. But you've also got to take into account that Bortoleto is a rookie again. Hadn't won the F3 title last season. If he wins the F2 title this season, he's done what George Russell did, Charles Leclerc did, and Piastri did, even more impressively because he's done it as a rookie both times. So I'm a big Bortoleto fan because I want someone from Brazil in F1 because I miss having a Brazilian F1. I miss the fire. I miss that South American temperament in it, and I want someone like that back in F1 from Brazil. I think the Brazilians would love that as well. And he is the next big star. I'm absolutely certain of it. But he isn't getting the kind of the plaudits that I thought he would get. But don't forget, he's still a McLaren F1 junior. So I think
that's why Audi and Sauber are a bit.
Exactly. That's a complication with Saudi and Alba right now, is because I don't think McLaren want to give him up just yet either. They're worried, I think, because in the next 2 years, there's still a potential that they lose Norris or Piastri to somewhere else. It could be Ferrari, it could be Red Bull, it could be Mercedes, it could be anywhere else, right? There's lots of that going on in the background. And I think McLaren want to ensure that they've got the next kid on the block as well.
Yeah, I mean, Red Bull did have Dennis Hauger, who's now going to IndyCar.
Yeah, exactly.
Indy Next or whatever.
Yeah.
So that shows. Yeah. So there's all you Danes telling me that I've got a lot of jip for saying
they're taking over
Indy
cars. They'll literally have like 5 Danes in IndyCar next season. It's insane.
But I can also throw this out for people who don't watch F2. Franco Colapinto is currently still 7th in the points after missing 4 races.
Yeah.
He's just behind Kimi Antonelli, ahead of French sensation Victor Martins. He's ahead of Richard Vasseur, Kushmani, Enzo Fittipaldi, Ollie Behrman, who's going to drive his 15th.
I mean, have a look at the 3 drivers confirmed to F1 graduating from F2 and see where they are. I think they're like 6th, 7th, and 15th, right?
Yes.
6th, 7th, and 15th, I think they are, right? But that's insane. In any other normal world, we'd be going, the fuck are those 3 doing in F1 when the others are all so obviously much better? And it's because, unfortunately, and a lot of people say, no, F2's the wrong proving ground. No. You've misunderstood what F2's going through right now. It's a brand new car with a brand new engine and a brand new set of systems that the teams just haven't got their heads around, and it's caused some really weird results this year. We've had 16 of the 22 drivers have won a race this season. It's unprecedented. We don't have that normally in F2, and we've had a very similar year in F3, and that's kind of made people think, oh, maybe the ladders aren't working. They're working just fine, guys. They're working just fine.
One thing we can confirm, Niels Coughlan will not be in Formula 1.
I mean, thank God. What the hell was that guy doing in Formula 2? Holy shit, my nan could have driven better than that. She's dead.
We'll get on to Bart's question, because we don't actually get many questions coming through from YouTube and all the time. So here's one. What do you guys find more enjoyable and admirable? The strong performances and domination of Max last year, or the strong performance of Max in a weak car this year? We'll go with Wajid first.
This year, I think when you build one of the most dominant cars in the history, yeah, you got to do a job and stuff. But Checo was getting second and third place when he didn't deserve to. Max dragging the car the way he has to still essentially maintain the same lead as Paul's mentioned from Imola. Yeah, it's impressive. It's impressive.
And Paul, you go on.
Yeah, it's a good question from a good man, Bart. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I would agree with Wajid. I think when I look back on the kind of years that I enjoyed or the performances that I enjoyed, they're always from drivers who they've got something else about them, and they do something that you kind of go, holy shit, how have they done that? And that's what made me fall in love with F1. So it was Gilles Villeneuve in a Ferrari. If you go back to almost any of the races that he made from probably 80 through to 82, there was an element of, how the fuck has he just won that? That's insane. Go and have a look at Spain, for instance, 1981. I have no idea how Gilles Villeneuve won that race, but he did, because he was a genius. Senna in the McLaren. My favourite year of Senna's was actually the last year he was at McLaren in 93. And yet he wasn't world champion. He didn't win his most races. He didn't get the most pole positions, but he was fighting two Williams, which were head and shoulders. Like, they were so far ahead of everything else in the field. They were 2 seconds quicker in qualifying. And somehow Senna won 5 races against them. And I love that, because some of his best driving happened in 93. Donington, the opening lap, the whole race, lapping the field, going in the pits and coming out 7 times. Like, it's just an insane, like, you can't believe the level of skill that he put into that. And Schumacher's had it as well. I think Schumacher in 96 in the Ferrari, I love that, because, again, you saw a driver who was at the absolute peak of their career in terms of speed and oneness with the car, and still having the mental capacity to watch the signs and watch the screens to see what the rain was doing and what the other drivers were. Yeah. You're driving a Formula 1 car in the rain, you moron. Focus on the fucking track. But no, these guys have got something extra that they're able to do, right? So watching them in that environment, for me, is the ultimate test of a Formula 1 driver. A real world champion, a driver that's got so much talent and an abundance of talent, but you can finally see it come out. There's nothing better than that. And I've really enjoyed watching Max just chuck that Red Bull about and be smart and cunning and all the things that you can accuse him of in a negative way, but actually can also use it as a positive. The same way you could with Michael Schumacher, the same way you could with Alain Prost, the same way you could with Ayrton Senna.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. What was it, Bart? Yeah, it's actually rare we get a question to actually talk about. So thanks for popping that one in. We're going to round up, because obviously this was about the American Grand Prix, but we've sort of halved it. So we'll start with, obviously we've had some good results this weekend. Haas suddenly massively on the pace. Sauber still looking for a second driver next year. The guy 23rd in a 20-car championship seems to be the favourite to get the drive next year. To be fair, if you're going to pick Bottas or Joe, I think you're going to take Bottas. But then there's the argument of Colapinto, there's the argument of Bortoletto, etc., etc. Lawson, also a great drive through the field.
Very good drive.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just very quickly go over them. I'm going to give you one each. Let's go for Paul with Haas. They've come through. They've always been so up and down, but this season, finally getting something. Kevin Magnussen finally getting a car which is the same as Nico Hulkenberg's. And he turns up.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Relatively.
I mean, there is relatively. I think Hulkenberg, I'm not a big Hulkenberg fan. I think he's 37 now. He's had his time. He's had his opportunity. He's had more than one opportunity. He's had 5 or 6 opportunities in good cars. Not world-class cars, but good cars. Still hasn't scored a podium. For me, I would rather he moved on to something else. But you can't deny he's had a really good season and a really strong season against, because other people go, oh, but Magnussen's not even that good. But hang on a minute, weren't you all singing his praises when he came back last season as a guy that really adapted to the new cars really well? And oh my God, what a great driver he is. So actually, let's put it in context and say actually Hülkenberg's done a really good job. I also think it's worth mentioning that there's obviously been some key changes in Haas over the last 12 months. And as much as I like Gunther Steiner, you've got to say that Komatsu is a much better team principal for Haas. He has revolutionized that team over the last 12 months.
He's totally changed that team.
Because they would not be getting these kind of results if it hadn't changed. And I think Gene knew that. So I actually think a lot of the credit goes to Gene Haas, who often just sits in the background and no one really talks about Gene Haas as the owner of the team, as kind of like, he doesn't really care. He's over there in America and the team's mostly European anyway. There's lots of little deals that have happened that Komatsu is responsible for, not least of which, by the way, the Toyota GR Racing deal, which they've recently done, which allows them all sorts of crazy technology in Europe. Wind tunnels, the double wind tunnel that Audi have still got over in Germany is still available. It's still serviced. McLaren were using that up until 23, I think, until theirs came online. 22 maybe, but it's state of the art this time. It's state of the art that McLaren have helped develop as well, and now Haas have all of that access to that. So I can only see good things happening for them as they go forward. And I think that all of the sniping that was going around them, the Andretti are going to buy them out and become the American team. I think that's all going to disappear now because I think Haas are properly back.
Yeah, I mean, Hülkenberg, 29 points this season, 10th in the championship, splits the Aston Martins, who obviously we know what designer is going there, and apparently the next going to be the next world champions or whatever. I probably agree with that as well, but good.
I mean, don't get me wrong,
very happy on the podcast.
Haas have had some shitty results as well. It's not been a bed of roses the whole season, but I think when they've had the opportunity to get the most out of the car, they've gotten the most out of the car. Yes. And they've had 6th places and 8th places and 7th and what have you. Whereas I think if you look at a team that's similar to them in terms of like speed and what they've got in terms of drivers would be Williams, right? And actually, I feel like when Williams have had that car that weekend, where they've got the 5th or 6th fastest car or the 3rd fastest car, and they could get a 5th or a 6th or a 7th, they haven't delivered it. Through whatever reason, unreliability, Albon being an idiot, Sargent not being competitive, whatever it might have been, they've never quite delivered what they were promising to deliver. I think Val's felt like they had the 4th fastest car at a few of the races. Well, they haven't shown that. Whereas Haas, every time they've had a chance, every time they've had an opportunity, they've taken it. And part of that is because they've got 2 very experienced drivers.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you've just said. I'm going to go home. Anyway, I am home. Anyway, Wajid. New to the races, Liam Lawson. Well, we kind of knew. He's had 5 races before.
He's not really new.
Red Bull tried their best to say, or Honda tried their best, here, have a new engine, have 60 place penalties. Yuki is our man. Stick Yuki in the test car. And then Yuki drives up to the first corner. How's Liam got there? What a drive by Liam Lawson. Again, though, are we going, this is the first time in the car, he's got nothing to lose, let's wait and see.
No, because he essentially knows he's got the RB visa seat. It's not about nothing to lose. I think strategically they got it massively wrong with Tsunoda anyway. But Tsunoda couldn't overtake first year because this is a typical Yuki Tsunoda drive. So people say stick him in the Red Bull seat. That's why you don't stick him in the Red Bull seat, because he's not good enough. But no, I think we've gone beyond the point with Lawson because it's a different it might be a car similar to the one he drove last year, but it's a different incarnation of the car. I don't think he raced that Kota last year. You can sort of. Did he race that Kota? I'm trying to think when Danny Rick came back.
Can I just throw this out there while Wajid's thinking?
Yeah, go on.
Very quick. Ask yourself this simple question: could Danny Rick have done the same thing as Lawson did on Sunday?
No.
And the answer is no.
Sadly, I would wish yes.
Yeah.
But if we think back to that Mexico one when he got a penalty, I think it was in Renault, and he went
just twaddling around at the back.
You've got a 5-second penalty, and he just goes, "All right, I'll drive quick then." I feel like we needed that, Danny Rick. But let me just have a look. Here we go. Last year, he drove in Netherlands, Italy, Singapore, Japan, and Qatar. So no, he just missed Kota because that was a return of Danny Rick.
So he didn't race a Kota last year. He's in a new incarnation of the car which you could probably say is weaker than last year's, and it's a very good drive. He's just sometimes you just gotta sit back and applaud and respect a very good driver when you see one. Excuse me, and that's what Lawson is. Oh, and by the way, all you Danny Rick riders that were having a go at me when I stuck him on Fraud Watch is undefeated, bitch.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sure my Mick Schumacher's still on there somewhere, actually. Just as a place where to. Okay. Just a quick question from Top Do. What were your thoughts on the sprint races? What do you think of the purpose of sprint races are? I'd like to see a team use a reserve driver in a sprint race. I just don't think that's possible because they have F2, most of them.
And also the whole point of a sprint race is the entertainment, stuff like that. People aren't, unless you're a hardcore sort of F1 fan, people aren't tuning in towards reserve drivers in a sprint race.
Yeah, I think Paul would. He was nodding away there. He's probably thinking if Minardi was still in, that's where Nissani's dad would have got the drive 4 seconds off the pace because the car's got too much grip.
I'd help us, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's worked. We could say the changes worked for Haas in terms of Ollie Behrman coming in because I think we pretty much knew even before he jumped in the car in Saudi Arabia he had that drive. I think that's why his Premier seat, it's kind of been like a Lewis Hamilton season. Just do what you can, try and learn the car and help us out. It doesn't matter, you go in. Worked for Williams in terms of Sargent and Colapinto, except for it saved them money on repair bills and overtime for having Colapinto in the car. Even though I've got to be honest, like the car looks like it's going to throw itself off at some corners, but he's holding on to it. So credit to that. And RB, it seems to be working in terms of Lawson coming in for Ricciardo as much as we don't want it to have happened. So, Kota, your sort of plus of the weekend, your drive of the weekend, and your complete absolute flop of the weekend. It doesn't have to be driver. It can be corner, Marshall. It can be because the guy didn't turn up and go, meow. It could be the hook tar girl. You know, whatever you want.
Paul, I'll let you go first, my friend.
So we'll go with your star of the weekend first.
Well, I think there were many stars. I think you could make a good shout for Colapinto. You could make a good shout for Lawson. But I think you have to give it to Charlie Leclerc because it was just a faultless drive. And I think whilst I think the other teams thought the Ferraris were probably the quickest car, he still had to go and do it. And he still had to make a bold pass at turn one and then control the race. And he did that. And we haven't always said that about Charles Leclerc. He's not always been the most consistent of front running drivers. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Charlie Leclerc.
Wajid, your star of the weekend?
I'm going to go Max. He was very unlucky to not stick it on actual pole for the race. He did stick on sprint pole. He got the win in the sprint, and he's come away from a weekend and he's extended his lead in the Drivers' Championship, pushing his rival 5 seconds off the road and stretching the rules the way Max Verstappen does, and having McLaren cry and go, well, it's not fair. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be really boring. My star of the weekend was Colapinto because he's almost made Albon look like nothing since he's come in. Maybe he was nothing. That's a different conversation to have. Your flop of the weekend or thing that didn't go right or whatever. We'll go Wajid first on this one.
There's two people. Well, it's an organization and it's a driver. FIA. The lesser the better. And Lewis, it was an awful week. It was just a terrible week at a track he's normally amazing at, and
country is amazing at.
A country is amazing at, and Team LH and everyone, at Team LH, it's just 5 more races, then he's going to be doning the red. I think what you said earlier in the year, where would you see him in the red? I think it might not openly be like that, but I think that Mercedes relationship has now got to the point where Lewis doesn't really want to be there anymore. And I feel like the Mercedes team don't really give a shit about the outcome of Lewis's car. It's just for the cameras more than anything else.
Yeah, no, it could be. I mean, Bart's just said, do you guys think Ferrari regret signing Lewis? I don't think anybody would regret signing Lewis Hamilton because be honest, Carlos.
They'll only regret it if they've spent $100 million over 3 years and he delivers nothing. That's the only time they'll regret it.
And I don't think we've been told all along that Mercedes are trialing stuff with this car. They're trying to get setups ready. They're trying to make sure they understand the car the best they can. And they know that won't happen with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli because they'll be too busy watching each other to make sure one of them's got to drive in 2026. So that's where I think that issue comes in. And Lewis has just, I think how Lewis has sort of let everybody know what's going on and bit his tongue at the same time, knowing what Mercedes have given him in terms of a champion, in terms of a career, because he was a McLaren driver, but it was more Mercedes link-up. I think he's bit his tongue enough to be able to go, I'll just go to Ferrari and I'll see you next year. Paul, your flop of the weekend?
I think mine's probably quite controversial because I don't think really anyone's talking about him. But my flop of the weekend is Fernando Alonso. I mean, if you look at his performances over the weekend as a driver that we love and we admire, and he would go in that class of drivers I talked about earlier that are somehow able to do things with cars that shouldn't be able to be doing it with. Some of the drives he made in that shitbox of a McLaren were incredible. But at the weekend, he seemed lackluster. He seemed disinterested. He seemed out of sorts. He qualified 14th in the sprint and finished 18th. He qualified, admittedly, 7th in the Grand Prix, but then he disappeared and he finished 13th a lap down. By the way, getting passed by Liam Lawson, who had one of those Cars moments from Cars 2, where the old geezer was like driving along, I'm quite happy here in 10th position. And Lawson went, went past him. No, get out of the way, said Alonso. And then he came past him backwards, going, fuck you, Alonso. I'm on the way to the points from the back of the grid in a shit car. Like, what the fuck was that drive, Fernando? Like, he rarely ever goes missing in a race. But this weekend, he went absolutely AWOL on the Aston Martin team. So, he was my flop of the weekend.
For me, there's a small one to Ocon for stealing Colapinto's fastest lap. I know why they did it, but you're an arsehole for doing that. Because we just wanted him to get it. I mean, to be fair, Esteban Ocon has won a Grand Prix, still actually till this weekend did not have a fastest lap in Formula One. So it's quite an unbelievable little stat.
All the Argentinians raging in the streets.
I actually think it's. I'm debating between two, and it's Alex Albon and Yuki Tsunoda because both of them should be there, demoralising, destroying the teammates, and they didn't. And two rookies have come in and gone, well, we ain't got drivers next year yet, so we'll just throw this out there. So it's a really difficult one, but I think I'll go for. I'll actually go for Yuki Tsunoda because Lawson come from the back of the grid to do so. Very, very quickly, we've got the Mexican Grand Prix coming up, and we are not going to have time to do a preview as much as Wajid wants to think so. I'm just having a quick look whether there's anything coming up. We've obviously got Kimi Antonelli coming in for Lewis Hamilton. Thank God I thought they were going to leave it to the final race and put Kimi in and make sure Lewis couldn't have the whole Abu Dhabi weekend. Alex Albon apparently leaning towards Colapinto's setup at Mexico, which is kind of a bit, okay, that's awkward. There is a F1 Pirelli test on FP2 to watch out for. So, for everybody who isn't interested in tyres, boring. But it just means that the drivers will not get so much information, which is probably good. Perez may possibly, maybe he'll announce his retirement when he qualifies 8th yet again.
That's a strong rumor, by the way. That's been a strong rumor doing the rounds for a little while now. Yeah.
And apparently Alonso missed media day through illness. Maybe that's where he went missing to. So if he did,
he's in the toilet crying about how shit he was last weekend. Or
what did he drop? Who dropped? It'd be Drugovic who would come in, wouldn't it? I don't think there's any clashes this weekend that would stop him. So it's going to be.
That would be
really,
interesting to see how he got on that car.
Yeah, well,
it would be, especially if it destroyed Stroll, which we probably think he would. Because ironically, for the junior test, which is not going to be a race at the end of the season, Jack Crawford has got the call up, not Drugovich. So that's a bit of an awkward one. But yeah, Mexico, is it a race you like, Paul?
I don't dislike it. It's not on my like, oh my god, please get the fuck out of here, like some of the other older races were. But I wouldn't say it's like a particular track that I enjoy. I used to love it because I used to think it was crazy back in the day in the 80s when Gerhard Berger won in the Benetton in 86. It was like the bumpiest piece of shit track ever. The television signal was so bad we only had about 7 lines of it that came to Britain. But it was amazing because it was bumpy as hell, and the Peralta final corner, which was like a 180 mile an hour, and it's all been dulled down a bit. So no, it's not one of my favourites, but I think it's probably one of Red Bull's favourites. They've won 5 of the last 6, I think. Only Lewis is in there, having in the modern, and obviously Nico back in 2016 as well. But yeah, it's a Red Bull track effectively, and they always seem to have gone well here, particularly since they've had the Honda in the back of that car. Yeah. I don't know why it breathes differently at high altitude or something, but it definitely seems to be quick in a straight line. So I think they'll probably go well.
Wajid, obviously we said Red Bull are quite good. Ferrari have been quite good around there. Mercedes, just God knows what's going to happen with them. McLaren, we don't really see them going, oh, Mexico, this is a track for us. It is, though, like Paul mentioned, the situation with the engines, we don't see cars coming from the back of the grid in Mexico to sort of dominate the race. I think Lewis did it once and struggled to about 8th to win the World Championship or something. So
something like that.
I think is this a race where as long as Red Bull get through this, they can kind of maybe go to Brazil or go to Las Vegas and take that engine penalty anyway and go, okay, job done.
I think they'll have a better chance in Vegas to take the engine penalty rather than Brazil, just because of those 2 massive long back straights. And I think the gap between the sort of cars at the back and the 3 to 4 cars at the front is so much better. I'd rather take the opportunities down the long straight where it's an easy overtake. I think Red Bull are going to do really well in Mexico anyway. Just historically, they always do well in Mexico. I don't know what it is about the car, the altitude, whatever else. So I land, for the sake of this podcast and the viewership, for this title challenge thing, Lando, it needs to be lights a flag. It can't be no mistakes from McLaren. He needs to win fastest lap and utterly dominate. And he now needs help from the Ferraris, which he didn't need 3 races ago. And that's the biggest in terms of a title fight. That's now the biggest issue, which is Lando Norris, in my opinion, now relies on the Ferraris and Oscar Piastri getting him between him and Max Verstappen. Max just has to do what he has been doing the rest, 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 4th. And so I think they're going to take an engine penalty. It'll be Vegas. It won't be Brazil.
Yeah,
the car's just not quick enough.
I've got to say, I do think it is. We say Lando's had this really quick McLaren dominant car, whatever, over summer. I think it's helped Max, but obviously Ferrari being in there. Mercedes took 3 wins out of 4, I think it was at one point, and things like that. So it's kind of not been okay. Lando's got the quickest guy; he's going to win everything. We'll take some predictions. Pole and fastest lap rather than sort of a top 5 that we normally do, because to be honest, we don't get it right anyway. So we'll take a pole, fastest lap, and your surprise and your sort of shitter of the weekend, shall we call it? It's after 9 o'clock.
Paul, you go first.
I'm going to go for nail in the coffin for the World Championship. Max Verstappen wins the race. But I'm going to go for a Lando Norris pole and then a failure to lead the lap at the end of the first lap. And fastest lap,
odds 5 to 1 on.
I'm going to go fastest lap Colapinto. And surprise will be an Alpine will finish in the top 6.
Interesting. Wajid?
Lando bins it. So that's your surprise / shitter of the weekend.
Is it a surprise?
No, well, yeah, Lando bins
Such
it.
a Lando hater, Wajid.
I don't think he's at the level that people rate him at. I think
you're gonna have to eat your own words next year when he's world champion.
I think it's going to be Lewis or Charles.
Hey, I had Lewis in a Ferrari last year, so this is by the end of the season. So
yeah, no. By the way, I got laughed at when I said I will see Lewis in a Ferrari in the next 2 years.
I've been saying it for 8 years. So I'm with you. I'm on that train. I've been saying he would end his career.
No, what happened was the rumor came out, and then Ferrari stuffed up Spain qualifying last year, and it was a perfect time to get a short out there of Wajid going, yeah, he'll go to Ferrari, and then Ferrari drop into Q1, both of them, and it made a lovely short. But I
did the thing when in August when year before last Vettel announced he retired. Yeah. I was the first one on Twitter that said Fernando Alonso goes and replaces him. And everyone laughed. They were like, no, you're wrong. How can he go there? He's got a contract with Alpine. He's never going to leave. Why would he go to a shit team like that? And I was like, because Lawrence Stroll wants a world champion in that team, because it's not just about the F1 team. It's about the road car stuff as well. And he needs someone like an Alonso kind of stature, someone a world champion, someone that can go in there and dominate and be a big name. No one believed me. And then like 2 weeks later, literally like, oh, wow, look, Alonso's signed for Aston Martin.
Yeah.
It's the only prediction I've got right in 2 years, so I'm going to brag about it.
But
take it.
So I think Lando bins it. I think Max is like Paul says. I think Max essentially secures the world title.
Right.
But I think Charles goes back to back, and I think he goes second in the world title race.
Okay, I'll go with a pole position for. I think Max will be on pole. Charles Leclerc will win the race. Perez will take out or damage Max in some kind of way, going for the win. A bit like he did last season almost. He was just lucky there's a Ferrari in between them. I think Perez will get desperate, which is not my surprise of the weekend because that's going to happen anyway. And I think we're going to see a top 6 for Nico Hulkenberg. It's not a surprise, but
I was just saying that's a fair bet, isn't it?
It's a fair bet. And with our predictions, I've been very good at putting Ricciardo 5th, Albon 5th. It's about time I put somebody. Actually, there is one more, Bottas or Sauber to finally get 11th. Not a point, getting 11th and get himself at the bottom of the title.
Didn't Joe get an 11th? Is that why he's ahead of him?
Yeah.
Joe's got an 11th. But the best result for Valtteri Bottas at the moment is 13th in
That's awful, isn't
Monaco.
It? So that puts him behind Sargent then.
Yeah, Sargent got
had an 11th, didn't he? In
11th in Britain.
Yeah.
Joe Guanyu got an 11th in the first race of the season in Bahrain. That's what he's living off. His best since then is 13th in Spain. I think there must have been a lot of retirements in Spain.
So Liam Lawson comes in, does one race, and immediately goes above all 3 drivers.
Yeah, Liam's now 20th. Ocon's 19th, behind Colapinto and Behrman. Gasly's next up, equal with K-Mag. That shows you how bad Alpine have been. And then Danny Rick, for all everybody saying he's had a bad season, 14th. And Yuki Tsunoda's only 12th. I'm not going to say
he got like double the points though.
He's got 12 to 22.
Yeah, and how many times did Yuki go in the point? Like 7 to 3 or 4? Isn't it like that? So 7.
Yeah, something
3
like
or
that.
something.
I think we'll always remember Danny Rick's. Was it 4th in Miami Sprint? I think it was. That'd be
because Sergio just overtook him, and Sergio was behind him as Max that overtook him, and then he finished 4th. Yeah, and then he did nothing in the race.
23 car championship. Who knows? We might go 24th, especially if Red Bull want to throw somebody else at it. Yeah, if Alonso's ill, Drugovich would come in. But yeah, so there's our predictions for Mexico. Obviously, we haven't done it very quick. And I'm sorry, but this is what we're like, Paul. The podcast, what did I say to you? 60, 90 minutes max. You know, we never go over it. Yeah. 2 hours later, we are still here.
I think part of that was probably my fault.
It's fine. We're very good at not sticking to time. Another prediction, I think Sauber announced their driver right after Mexico. They're saying they're waiting till November, so that would be just about not quite. I think they'll wait for that little break.
I think they wait for Brazil.
Yeah.
And announce Sportletto.
Yeah, I could see that. But I suppose they want to see a little bit more of what Colapinto is going to do, I think, possibly. But we are going to leave
I heard last week he's out of the running. I heard that they're done. He's not going to Audi, so.
Well, there we go then. Yeah. Maybe he's going to turn up in a Red Bull Academy. Or with Carlos Slim's finances. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining us on the podcast. I mean, record views on the YouTube channel. And a few of you floating around Twitch, as always. We never expect many through Twitch. Wajid, as always, thank you for being here. You can catch Wajid on Instagram. At Burnt Out Travels.
Just Instagram. Thank you.
Yeah, just Instagram. And Paul, we can obviously catch you on Twitch at Redeye. YouTube, anything like that? I don't know what else you do.
I do some stuff on YouTube, not much. But yeah, mostly, if you really want to hang out, I'm just in the Discord. So yeah, you can find the Discord link on my Twitch page /Redeye.
If any of you do iRacing, you've probably seen Paul's paints out there. So make sure you go and like them all on Trading Paints as well, because I would say that to Wajid, but he races F1 games.
But it's only because I'm going to Mexico from February onwards, and I'm away for 6 months, so I will come back and get my setup.
I mean, I'm not going to say much, but my sim rig is better than the Haas's. Anyway,
at least you have one.
At least I have one. Yeah. I think they brought the one off the pit stop, boys. We won't talk about that. Anyway, thank you everybody for being here. Beatster, you haven't missed it. It is on YouTube. You can go back and watch it. But everybody who's joined in, thank you for including yourselves. And we will see you on Monday, Wajid.
Yes, Monday.
Yeah, Monday for the review of the Mexican Grand Prix, where we'll be announcing Perez's leaving. We'll be announcing Arvid Lindblad is the next Red Bull driver. And Helmut Marko might have another meltdown about McLaren. So,
but it just sounds so good. A massive thank you to Paul for joining us today.
Yes,
thanks for having me. Honestly,
really appreciate it. And
you know what Wajid's been doing when he's quiet? He's been planning a quiz between me and you. That's what's going to be happening.
As long as it's on 80s F1, I'm fine. Anything after that gets a bit shaky. So,
as the youngest in here, I feel sorry for that. So.
Yeah,
but no, Paul.
Honestly, thanks for it. It's been really fun.
No, thank you very much, and please do come back anytime.
Yeah, absolutely, anytime.
I mean, normally when we go live on Monday, he's normally painting and doing his own little review on Twitch. So
yeah, that's been the problem before. Actually, David has asked, but I'm either already live or I've just finished a seminar.
But like I said, just want to say thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you made us look thick. On 80s anyway. Thank you everybody for joining us. Go check it out. Click like, subscribe. Is it follow on Twitch? God knows what. Anyway, I always get confused between the two. And also go and do it on Paul's, which will pop into the YouTube comments at the end of the show. So see you all then, and we'll see you on Monday.